8 baby monkeys were taken from their mothers the day they were born. Each one was placed alone in a cage with 2 fake mothers. One was made of cold wire mesh but held a bottle of milk. The other was made of soft cloth and held nothing at all. Every single monkey chose the one that couldn't feed them. And what happened to those monkeys over the following years exposed something about love, attachment, and the human mind that psychology had gotten catastrophically wrong for decades. This is the story of Harry Harlow, and it is one of the most disturbing experiments ever conducted on a living creature. In 1958, an American psychologist named Harry Harlow stood in front of the American Psychological Association and delivered a speech that would upend an entire field. At the time, the dominant scientific opinion on parenting was brutally simple. Mothers existed to provide food. That was it. Feeding was the mechanism of love. If a baby was fed, warm, and clean, its emotional needs were considered met. Affection, warmth, comfort, these were seen as soft, unscientific, almost sentimental concepts that had no real place in raising a healthy child. Doctors of the era openly advised parents against too much affection. Too much holding, they warned, would make children weak and overly dependent. Harlow thought this was nonsense, and he was about to prove it in the most unsettling way possible. Harlow had spent years studying rhesus monkeys, a species close enough to humans genetically that behavioral studies on them carried real scientific weight. He built 2 artificial mothers. The first was a bare wire cylinder, cold metal mesh bent into a rough shape, fitted with a bottle that dispensed warm milk. The second looked nothing like the first. It was wrapped in soft terry cloth, a plush, huggable surrogate with a blank wooden face. It provided 0 food. Nothing. Just softness. He took infant rhesus monkeys away from their biological mothers immediately after birth and placed them in cages with access to both surrogates. If the dominant theory of the time was correct, the babies should have bonded with the wire mother, the one providing the milk, the one meeting their actual survival need. That is not remotely what happened. The infant monkeys spent nearly all of their time clinging to the cloth mother, hours and hours a day, wrapped around the soft surrogate, touching it, pressing their bodies into it. They would only leave to visit the wire mother when they were hungry, drink quickly, and then rush straight back to the cloth mother to cling to it again. Harlow wanted to push the finding further to see exactly how strong this pull toward comfort actually was. So he introduced fear into the equation. He placed frightening objects into the cage, mechanical toy insects with moving parts, loud, jarring noises, things designed to genuinely terrify a baby monkey, and every single time the infants ran, not to the wire mother holding the food, but to the cloth mother holding nothing. They would cling to the soft surrogate, calm down, and only then sometimes cautiously venture back out to investigate the frightening object, always keeping one hand or foot in contact with the cloth mother as a kind of anchor. The wire mother, despite being the literal source of nutrition, was almost never sought out for comfort. In some of Harlow's variations, when only the wire mother was present with no cloth mother at all, the infants showed clear signs of distress even while feeding. They didn't relax, they didn't thrive. Physically, they survived, but something else in them was clearly struggling. Harlow had discovered something that the scientific establishment had completely dismissed. Contact comfort, the simple experience of touch and softness, was not a luxury layered on top of survival needs. It was, in some fundamental way, a need in itself. But here's where the story stops being sad and starts becoming genuinely disturbing. Harlow didn't stop there. He wanted to understand what happened to monkeys who were raised with no attachment figure at all. No cloth mother, no wire mother, nothing. Total isolation. He built what came to be known as the Pit of Despair, a small stainless steel chamber shaped like an inverted pyramid, isolated from all light and social contact. Infant monkeys were placed inside completely alone, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months at a time. What emerged from those chambers was unrecognizable as a normal rhesus monkey. These animals rocked back and forth obsessively. They bit and clawed at their own bodies. They stared blankly at nothing for hours. When eventually reintroduced to other monkeys, they had no idea how to interact. They didn't understand play. They didn't understand social hierarchy. Many of them simply froze in the corner of enclosures, unable to engage with anything. The females who survived isolation and were later able to conceive became, in many documented cases, neglectful or violently abusive mothers, some ignoring their own infants completely, others attacking them. Harlow himself referred to some of these mothers as motherless mothers, animals who had never received nurturing themselves and consequently had no internal template for providing it. This is the part that should genuinely stop you. The damage caused by early isolation wasn't something that simply faded with time or could be fixed with later socialization. In many cases, it appeared to be close to permanent. Monkeys isolated for the first 6 months of life, a critical developmental window showed lasting behavioral abnormalities even decades later. The earlier and longer the isolation, the more severe and irreversible the damage tended to be. Harlow's data suggested something psychology at the time did not want to hear. There was a specific window in early development where attachment and social contact were not optional extras. They were structurally necessary for a functioning brain and a functioning nervous system to develop properly. Miss that window entirely, and no amount of later intervention could fully repair what was lost. Now, here's where the story becomes genuinely uncomfortable in a different way. Harlow's findings were revolutionary. They fundamentally reshaped how psychology, medicine, and eventually entire societies understood child development. His work directly influenced the shift away from the cold, distant parenting advice of the mid-20th century, and it played a significant role in ending institutional practices, where orphaned or hospitalized infants were kept in rows of cribs with minimal human touch, an approach that, before Harlow, was standard medical practice in many countries. But the way Harlow got there raises questions that still divide scientists and ethicists today. His experiments caused prolonged, severe psychological suffering in a species capable of experiencing real distress, real fear, and real despair. The pit of despair in particular has been cited for decades as one of the most ethically troubling experiments in the history of psychology. Many of the practices Harlow used would not be permitted under modern research ethics guidelines, guidelines that, in no small part, exist today because of the backlash his work eventually generated. There is a genuine, unresolved tension sitting at the center of the story. The suffering of those monkeys produced knowledge that almost certainly reduced suffering in millions of human children who came after them. Attachment theory, modern pediatric care standards, the entire cultural shift toward valuing physical affection and emotional presence in early childhood, all of it traces directly back to a small number of monkeys clinging desperately to a cloth-covered wireframe that could never actually hold them back. So what does any of this actually mean for you? It means the bond you have or had with the person who raised you was never really about being fed and kept alive. Every infant mammal studied since Harlow's work, including our own species, appears to be wired with the same underlying architecture, a deep, structural need for contact, warmth, and presence that exists completely independent of nutrition. It means that somewhere in your earliest development, long before you have any conscious memory of it, your nervous system was quietly asking the same question those infant monkeys were asking every single day in that cage. Not, will I be fed, but is there something here I can hold on to? Harlow proved in the most uncomfortable way imaginable that love is not a reward for meeting a need. Love is the need.